416,000. That is the exact number of cell phones Americans throw away every single day. The vast majority of these devices aren't broken. They didn't shatter on a sidewalk or short circuit in the rain. They were discarded because they slowed down, or because a mandatory update made them feel hopelessly out of date. Your device has a strict shelf life, and in a surprising number of cases, that expiration date was engineered right into the hardware by the very company that sold it to you. The frustration you feel when a 2-year-old phone suddenly starts dying at 20% battery is a legally documented, highly profitable business strategy. It is called planned obsolescence. Multiply that daily disposal rate globally, and the scale becomes difficult to comprehend. Last year, the world generated a record 62 million tons of electronic waste. This chart shows the hidden tragedy inside that trash. A massive bar represents $62 billion in discarded raw materials: gold, copper, rare earths. The tiny sliver next to it is the fraction we actually recover. We are throwing away billions in precious metals, and it is entirely by design. The companies making our technology specifically choose manufacturing techniques that prioritize replacement over recovery. To guarantee you keep buying, tech companies use 4 specific mechanisms. The first is hardware. By permanently sealing a lithium-ion battery inside a sleek glass case, the manufacturer ensures that when the battery naturally degrades over time, replacing it will be so expensive you are forced to buy a whole new phone. The second is functional obsolescence. A company pushes a background firmware update that slows down your processor. Your physical hardware is perfectly healthy, but it suddenly feels impossibly slow. The third mechanism is parts pairing. Manufacturers write software that digitally recognizes individual components, like screens or cameras. If you install a genuine, identical replacement part, the proprietary software simply blocks it from working. The fourth is desirability obsolescence. The internal tech stays exactly the same, but the exterior gets a slightly different camera bump or a new finish, making fully functional older models feel socially irrelevant. Modern tech conglomerates deploy all 4 of these strategies at the exact same time. Independent repair becomes economically impossible, and you are quietly boxed back into the checkout line. If you need proof of exactly how this works, look at the legal record. In 2016, Apple pushed an iOS update to millions of older iPhones. Buried inside that update was secret code designed to throttle the phone's processor speed. The public didn't know this was happening until developers at Geekbench published the data. Looking at this chart, you can clearly see the flat, stable baseline processing speed of an older iPhone running previous software. But when that same phone updated to the new iOS, the chart changes. The performance line systematically drops in descending steps. The developers found a direct mathematical correlation. As the physical battery aged, the software artificially crushed the processing power. Millions of users had already abandoned their sluggish phones and paid for upgrades. Following severe backlash, 33 U.S. states sued, resulting in a $113 million settlement, alongside a €27 million fine from the French government for misleading commercial practices. Apple maintained this was a protective feature for aging batteries, not planned obsolescence. But the multi-million-dollar payouts demonstrate exactly how companies use masked software slowdowns to drive hardware sales. We see the same tactic in the peripheral market. HP pushed a firmware update called Dynamic Security to millions of its printers. Its sole function was to detect if you installed a third-party ink cartridge. If you did, the perfectly functional printer simply locked up and displayed a fake error message. A class action lawsuit forced HP to pay out $1.5 million and agree to stop using the lock in 2019. But then, in 2022 and 2023, they silently re-enabled the exact same block through automatic background updates. We know exactly why they did it, because HP's own chief financial officer admitted it on a public earnings call. She told investors that when customers are forced into HP's official ink subscriptions, the company sees a 20% uplift in their value because, in her words, you're locking that person in. That is a corporate executive explicitly confirming the playbook. Manufacturers weaponize post-purchase software updates to control what you do with hardware you already own, guaranteeing themselves a steady stream of monopoly revenue. None of this is a modern invention. This strategy dates back to 1925, when the global Phoebus Cartel secretly colluded to cut the lifespan of incandescent light bulbs from 2,500 hours down to exactly 1,000 hours, purely to double their sales volume. The methods have evolved from fragile physical filaments to invisible digital firmware, but the corporate incentive remains exactly the same today as it was a century ago. Artificial death drives massive profits. Fortunately, consumers are starting to win. The right to repair movement is actively securing legislative victories, including the European Union's Comprehensive Right to Repair Directive going into effect in 2026, and similar laws advancing across several U.S. states. Right now, you have two primary defenses. First, heavily research a product's repairability score in groups like iFixit before you hand over your money. Second, critically evaluate what a firmware update actually contains before you hit install. And we need your data to keep exposing this. If your phone, printer, or laptop died mysteriously right after a major update, or exactly when your warranty expired, tell us in the comments. We are building a collective case file, and every single data point matters.